Christina had a tough life. Her father heroically died in a conflict zone when she was still a child. Her mother raised her alone, struggling to provide for her daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't do very well. Christina's mother, Veronica, was often sick. Sometimes, she would be on sick leave for months until her employer hinted that perpetually ill employees were not needed. Every time she resigned, her mother would lock herself in a room, crying into her pillow out of helplessness. They were always short on money. Sometimes, dinner was just bread dipped in salted butter or macaroni. In class, she was the worst dressed. Children can be cruel, they say what they see. Christina was considered an outcast, and the girls would gossip about her poor clothing. She got used to the mockery of her classmates, whispering in the back about how Christina had come in patched-up sweaters again. When Christina turned 14, her mother passed away. Her aunt, her mother's sister, took on the responsibility of raising her. Life didn't get any better for Christina there either. Aunt Nina called her a freeloader and a lazybones, but she herself showed no interest in working or managing the household. Nina quickly realized that Christina was already quite grown up and could be tasked with running the household. Aunt Nina assigned all the household chores to her niece and even sent her to buy wine at the nearest store, where a close friend of Nina's worked and would sell wine on credit. Aunt Nina loved to have a glass of wine in the evening. When there was no money for wine, she wasn't shy about running to the neighbor for moonshine. At the end of the month, they would dip bread in oil together. Money never stayed long in Nina's hands. After paying off debts, the aunt and niece would be broke again. Tipsy, her aunt would always start the same old song, "You're a burden, when will you get married?" which often brought Christina to tears. The same friend who sold Christina wine for her aunt had a son. Elvira worked in her son's store. Nina envied their family's wealth intensely. She repeatedly asked Christina if she liked her friend's son, but the girl just kept silent. When Christina became an adult, Nina began painting a rosy picture of a well-off life with Elvira's son. But she was thinking more about her own well-being than about Christina. If Christina married the store owner, they wouldn't be mistreated. She could go to the store without needing money. Becoming Elvira's relative might even get her free groceries. And then, she wouldn't have to pay off her debts. Nina owed her friend a significant amount of money. But the grown-up niece wasn't in a hurry to bring her aunt into her imagined prosperous world. Always obedient, Christina suddenly became defiant, shouting that she wouldn't solve her aunt's financial problems. She was fed up with her aunt's daily pressure to marry her friend's son. One day, Christina snapped. "I'm not solving your financial problems." Then she stormed out, slamming the door. When she returned later, Christina packed her few belongings, took a piggy bank her aunt didn't know about. She had been saving money since she came to live with her. The money she saved should be enough to pay for a room. She also took her father's medal and award documents. These awards were the only memories she had of her late father. The medal became a talisman for Christina. The money was enough to pay for the modest room at the elderly landlady's place and to buy food for a while. After moving out, Christina thought about her future. Going to school was out of the question since she had to pay for the room and live on something while studying. One day, in a supermarket, Christina received a free newspaper with job listings in the city. There were many job offers, but most required specific qualifications that she didn't have. Christina randomly picked a phone number of a company looking for a janitor. Where else could she go after school? She could only mop floors to earn a living. In the HR department, they hired her on the spot. Due to the particularly toxic staff, janitors didn't last long at this company. The office had been dirty for 3 days. After signing the employment contract, Christina immediately got to work. Entering a room filled with computers and office workers, Christina diligently started mopping the floor. "What's that smell? I don't get it." Christina flinched at the sharp yell right in her ear. The person shouting was a beautiful but very angry young woman. She was beautiful in that poisonous way, like the villains in movies. Black eyebrows arched high, almond-shaped angry eyes, raven, black hair, high cheekbones, and a sharp, refined chin. She even had a streak of black hair in the middle of her forehead, like a witch. One look was enough to understand that this beauty was a real bully. Despite this, the girl was more than attractive. "What are you staring at? Can't you smell that the mop reeks of rot? Go rinse it with cleaning solution," ordered the venomous beauty imperiously. Passing by 2 guys sitting near the exit, Christina overheard them whispering, evaluating her figure and other attributes. Christina was also a pretty girl, but unlike the girl who had just ordered her to rinse the mop, her beauty was gentle and soft. Christina had kind facial features, large gray eyes, a high forehead, childishly plump lips, and thick blonde hair gathered into a messy ponytail with a simple terry hair tie. Even the old, out-of-fashion baggy clothes couldn't hide her slender waist and full chest. With her eyes shyly lowered and holding the mop, she reminded the guys of poor Cinderella, scolded by one of the evil stepsisters. They shared these observations in hushed whispers, hoping the local office queen, Maria, wouldn't hear. It was Maria who had scolded Christina. They also shared their impressions of the new janitor. The girl was definitely attractive, but her clothes and shoes were shabby. The guys were wrong to think Maria didn't hear their whispers. The office queen had excellent hearing, a trait all mean women who love to cause trouble possess. Christina hadn't even left the room when Maria was already enthusiastically discussing every piece of her poor old wardrobe with her female colleagues. Christina wanted to snap the mop over her knee and tell everyone to go to hell. But memories of her own dire situation stopped her. Suppressing her overwhelming emotions, she rinsed the mop and returned to the office to continue mopping the floor, ignoring the taunts of the female staff. Every day at work felt like hell. Maria managed to turn not only the employees but also the management against the new janitor. Only one guy sympathized with her, the same one who had called her Cinderella at their first meeting. One day, he secretly waited for Christina outside the office because her workday ended later than the other employees. When she came out, Lucas invited her to a cafe. They chatted cheerfully, and Lucas seemed like an open and kind guy to Christina. But the next day, in one of the long office corridors, one of Maria's friends approached her. "You fool! Do you know who you're messing with? Lucas is Maria's boyfriend. They're planning to get married. She'll destroy you if I tell her you went to a cafe with him. Maria is soon going to be the head of the department. You're in for a real treat," the girl said with a sneer. The next day, Christina got an unpleasant surprise. When she entered the room where Maria's department was located, a song started playing loudly. "Hello, second-hand girl." Maria, with a serious face, began asking Christina where she could buy such a vintage sweater, mocking Christina's old shoes by calling them rare collectibles. Maria kept coming up with new and cruel ways to ridicule every item in Christina's wardrobe. The office workers who witnessed Christina's humiliation politely chuckled at Maria's mean jokes, not wanting to cross the malicious careerist. Lucas never invited Christina to the cafe again. When he accidentally ran into the young janitor in the corridor, he would awkwardly avoid eye contact. He couldn't look at the girl who had so deeply captivated him. He felt ashamed and disgusted by his own betrayal, as he had laughed along with everyone else during Maria's cruel spectacle. Lucas had long since lost interest in Maria but didn't dare suggest they break up. He liked his job in the office, was content with his salary, and didn't want to risk a conflict with the future department head. People like Lucas are often called opportunists. He was hoping for career advancement, willing to secure his place under the sun by any means necessary, even if it meant trampling on genuine feelings and betraying his nascent love. After the harassment of the janitor who dared to show interest in her boyfriend, Maria felt like a satisfied vampire. The office queen was so pleased with publicly humiliating Christina that she left the young janitor alone for a while. Christina's briefly uplifted self-esteem quickly clashed with the harsh reality. If she quit this job, she risked being without a paycheck. She hadn't read the employment contract before signing it. Later, when she went to HR to talk about quitting, they informed her that if she left before the agreed-upon period, not working at least 1 month, she wouldn't get paid at all. Apparently, this was stated in the contract. Losing the money she'd earned was too painful, so she had to stay. The money from her piggy bank was almost gone, and now Christina had to take care of a little pet. She couldn't leave Martin hungry. The tiny white kitten had somehow sneaked into the office, and Christina had to hide him from the spiteful Maria until the end of the workday. Being kind-hearted, she couldn't leave the helpless month-old kitten on the street, so she took him home. The kind old lady whose room Christina rented was perfectly fine with the kitten. Christina named him Martin. When she nearly ran out of money, she even shared her last bit of kefir with him. The long-awaited payday coincided with the day the boss intended to visit the office. He was the head of the entire network of branches and enterprises, and everyone feared him except Maria. She had managed to gain the former military man's trust. He admired her sharp mind, predatory beauty, boldness, and audacity. When the management was making their rounds, the boss didn't miss the chance to stop by his favorite employees' department. Seeing him, Maria got up from her seat and hurried to meet him, accidentally knocking over an unfinished cup of coffee resting on the armrest of a massive computer chair. The paper cup fell silently to the floor, spilling the remaining coffee. Quickly kicking the dirty cup under the table, Maria flashed a welcoming smile and approached the boss. "Hello, Oscar. Why haven't you visited us for so long? We've missed you." Maria puckered her beautifully contoured lips as if she wanted to kiss the boss. Then she cast a vengeful glance at Christina, who was wiping the chair with a cloth, and continued, "Although, you know, there's no time to get bored here. The HR manager hires all sorts of people. The new janitor does a terrible job cleaning the office. We're practically sitting in a pigsty." Maria gently took the boss by the arm and led him to her workstation. Pointing to the stain left by the spilled coffee with a feigned expression of anger, Maria nodded toward Christina. "Do you see this? Do you see how our janitor cleans? My workstation is completely ignored. It's never cleaned here. It's always dusty and dirty." Oscar furrowed his brow. He was still a relatively young man, imposing, upright, with a military bearing. Maria knew very well that the meticulous boss hated disorder, so she decided to set up the upstart whom she considered her rival. "Come to my office," the boss said curtly to Christina as he left. His tone did not bode well. "Why is the office in such a mess? Why are you doing your job so poorly? The boss scrutinized the flushed face of the embarrassed girl. It was clean. "I don't know where the stain and dirt came from," Christina managed to say. "They don't like me in the office. Maria is always picking on me. She probably spilled the coffee on purpose. She just wants you to fire me." The girl suddenly found the courage to speak up to the boss. Oscar thoughtfully tapped the desk with the cap of his pen. "You seem like a good girl. Why do the office workers dislike you so much?" "I don't know." "And who are you, anyway? Introduce yourself." Christina gave her name and surname. Hearing her rather rare and unusual surname, the boss became agitated. "What's your father's name?" Christina lowered her head but then lifted it proudly and said her father's name. "He died," she began, but the boss interrupted, finishing for her. "He was my friend. The captain died after sustaining a fatal wound, but he saved my life by pulling me out of the line of fire." He then fell silent for a long time. Christina stood there, shifting from foot to foot. The silence dragged on. "So, Maria is bullying you in the office? We'll sort this out. Go back to work for now. Tomorrow I'll have another janitor hired. It's not right for a hero's daughter to be pushing a mop. You'll go to school. Is your mother alive?" Christina shook her head no. "A long time ago." The girl nodded yes. "So you're an orphan. Do you have a place to live?" Christina shrugged. "I lived with my aunt, but now I rent a room." The boss clenched his hand on the desk so hard that his knuckles turned white. "We'll sort this out." That day, Christina ran to her rented apartment, feeling overjoyed. She had received her first paycheck and even a generous bonus. She ran into the pet store and bought cat pâté for Martin. Seeing a toy for kittens, she bought that too. That day, she felt incredibly proud of herself. She had become a true provider, able to feed both herself and her kitten. But the greatest joy was that the boss had fired the annoying Maria, who had made Christina's life so miserable. Now, no one would humiliate her and mock her old, unattractive clothes, though she could now afford to buy something new. After feeding Martin, Christina went shopping for new clothes. The next day was even better. Arriving at the office, Christina was surprised to see an unfamiliar older woman mopping the floors. The HR manager approached Christina, unusually obsequious and ingratiating, and handed her a new contract. She had been hired as a customer service operator. In the afternoon, the boss returned. He once again invited Christina into his office, where he handed her the keys to an apartment. "The key to my second apartment. I once bought this apartment for my future children, but that hasn't happened yet. Live there. It's not right for a friend's daughter to be moving around rented rooms. Oh, I have a kitty. Can I bring my kitten there?" "I can't go anywhere without Martin," said Christina. Oscar laughed cheerfully. "Sure, come even with an alligator. The apartment has been empty for a long time. You and your cat can take over there." After packing up her things and Martin, Christina warmly said goodbye to the old lady she rented the room from and moved into a spacious 3-bedroom apartment. After moving, Christina didn't run to work, she flew. Although she was listed as a simple operator, she hardly ever took calls. The boss treated his friend's daughter like his own child. He bought her new clothes, bought appliances for the apartment she lived in, and began to educate her about the company's affairs. The childless soldier saw in Christina his successor. He wished that if anything happened to him, Christina would be able to replace him in all areas related to the network of offices and enterprises. Only Aunt Nina kept insisting that there was no money for education. A friend of her late father insisted that Christina enroll in university, in the economics faculty. Watching the transformation in the appearance and behavior of the former janitor, as well as the attitude of the management towards her, Lucas immediately found the courage to tell Maria that their relationship was over. He didn't hurt Maria at all with this statement. The girl had long considered him a hopeless wimp, trying to woo the boss's son at her new workplace. Given free rein by the former office queen, the adapted one tried to mend things with Christina. But the girl already knew his worth, so she rejected his proposal to go out on the weekend. Christina refused him briefly and coldly, amazed to think she had ever liked such a worthless person. The cunning adapted one was left with nothing. He was needed by neither Maria nor Christina. How could she even suffer for him, cry over his betrayal when he lured her and then switched to Maria? Where were my eyes? What could I possibly like about someone like Lucas? Perhaps only his overly sweet marmalade face. And I suffered from unrequited love, even cried. I chastised myself for my past short-sightedness. Once, while buying food for Martin at the pet store, Christina knocked a can of pâté off the shelf. Skillfully caught by a strong hand, the can didn't reach the floor. "Don't skimp on your cats, you're buying good food," said a tall unfamiliar guy, nodding approvingly at the bag of cat food in Christina's hands. "I try. I just love him." Impressed by the agility and quick reaction of the boy, Christina was a bit taken aback. "I love my kitty too. He's Scottish." "What breed is your cat?" the guy asked. "And mine is purebred. The breed is street mixed." "A mutt," the girl joked in response. "He snuck into our office. I picked him up so that one mean witch wouldn't throw him out the window. So the kitty stayed with me. I named him Martin." Suddenly, Christina opened up out of nowhere. It hadn't been 10 minutes since they met, and the boy and girl chatted as if they were old friends. Victor understood Christina's jokes, and Christina liked his openness and perspectives on life, which he readily shared with her. Unnoticed by Christina, Victor escorted the girl home. They stood by the entrance for a long time, chatting about everything under the sun. They wanted to talk to each other. The boy and the girl didn't want to part, but it was already too dark outside. Christina thought it was indecent to show such obvious sympathy for each other on the first day of acquaintance. But Victor anticipated her, saying he didn't want to leave, but decency demanded it. He seemed to have read her mind. As Christina climbed the stairs, she thought with surprise that it turns out it's all true. About impulses, about the unity of souls, about one's person. She spent the whole night without sleep, replaying plots from the novels she had read to exhaustion, where the characters met their soulmates. In the morning, completely sleep-deprived, Christina got ready for work. For the first time in a long while, she didn't want to go. She wanted to run to the pet store to try to find Victor. In their conversation, they even forgot to exchange phone numbers. Imagine her surprise when, leaving the entrance, she saw him. "You know, I couldn't leave you. I just ran home to feed the cat, and then I came back to your place. I spent the whole night looking at your window." The guy pointed to the windows on the second floor where Christina lived. "And you didn't sleep either. I saw the light on in your bedroom all night. It's fate, you know. It was meant to be. You're mine, and I'm yours." "And that's that," Victor said, drawing the girl closer to him, greedily inhaling the scent of her hair.